Okay, so today I went out and harvested some rose hips down by the river. Put them in a pot of boiling water. See what kind of color I can get. It's kind of a odd orange. See if I can dye some yarn. Some of the wet yarn here and some of the raw. So I'm going to soak it in salt water first for a little bit. I didn't let this actually go to boil, so I wanted to preserve as much color as possible. And so kind of see the tea looking color. Actually smells kind of good. Smells like rose hips. We'll just pour that back in, and we'll get back to you after I get done soaking the wool, and before we put it in the dye bath. And I'll heat up the dye bath a little bit more once. Okay, so now we're gonna get this stuff Okay, now we're going to do an extra little trick to get some of the really fine stuff out. I'll put it in a little container. Get it back in the pan. So we're gonna spilling. So I don't have a lot of dye bath water here, so not sure how well this will work, but maybe it'll be enough. Nice, gorgeous dye color there. Coffee filters. Coffee filters do wonders. And so do paper towels. So I'm expecting more of a brownish color, I think, for this dye. So now we're going to bring the dye over and kind of wring it out, and then we'll put it in the dye bath. Okay, so here's the one little skein that I did. And I'm just going to put it in. And we're just going to let it sit. I'm going to warm it back up again. And we're going to put the other in. Actually, it's still pretty hot, so I'm just going to leave that. Okay, so now we're going to put the other, and we're going to cover it up. And then we're just going to let this stuff sit overnight. So we'll come back to this. So you can kind of see already that this is just kind of a pale brown and not really an orange. But interesting nonetheless. So I'm just going to put a lid on it. And we're just going to let it sit. We'll be back in the morning. Okay, so here we are, next morning. This is the color. This is the yarn. So it looks darker because of the liquid in here. I'm going to go ahead and pour this off. So now it's pretty light. So I'm expecting that this isn't going to take color too well. So we're going to go step over to the sink and rinse it. And then I'll be right back. Just kind of poke it about. And this, whatever color we get, is going to be really pale. So, just rinsing it with cold water at the moment. So I'm going to go pour this off. So I'm going to get some warm water and we're going to do some warm. So it's definitely not back to white. So, and there's some varying colors in the raw part of the wool and in this wool too. So we'll see. It looks like color got all the way through. Okay, water's warm, so I'm going to go rinse it in warm. Bring it back here. Not a bad color for a nice light color. So I did not use any actual mordant, just used salt pre-soak. Let it sit overnight. I'm going to go rinse that out. I was wondering if maybe the vitamin C in the rose hip would be enough to help hold the color, but I'm not gonna expect some super color fastness. Can't set it out in the sun because it's nice and rainy right now, so we can't do a sun color fast. I'm not gonna wash it with soap. Well, maybe we can. Just a little tiny bit. See what happens. So the water's looking pretty decent here. And a little bit of soap for a color fast wash. See what happens here. Not a lot of soap, but enough. Do a little agitating. And when we're all done and it's all dry, I'm going to comb the raw wool and we're going to spin it up and then compare the two side by side after to see which way is going to be better for coloring. Color in the raw or color after we're done. Okay, we're back again. So the soap rinse did not yield any extra color loss. Rinse water was clear. And so this is what it used to look like. So this is the colored versus what it started out. And this is the dye bath leftover after sitting all night. And so you can see the tips got a little darker, but this is pre-combed. This is just washed raw wool, pre-soaked in salt water for both these pieces here, and that's what we have. So as soon as they dry good enough, I'm going to comb this, and then I'm going to spin it up, and then we'll compare the two together, see what happens. So there you have it for now. This is wild rose hips that I collected yesterday down across the railroad tracks. where we have an abundant supply of rose hips. And if I had gone there 3 weeks ago, I would have had a really large batch of high quality rose hips for processing for all sorts of things besides color. So we got to figure out what kind of mordant will work with these. We won't be able to finish that till next year. So, because most of what's on there right now is no good. They're all rotting away. So I'll talk to you later. Okay. So now, been combing the wool that I dyed almost to the end, so I still have a little bit more, and this is what I've got so far. It's still a little damp, but I dried it pretty good. Figured it might help keep the static down. I'm just trying to get as much as I can. It kind of knotted up pretty bad here on the back side. In the process of doing this, it was sort of felting the wool, so I think dyeing after the fact versus before might be better, but we'll see. I'm loosening it up a bit. If we get a few more bits out of this, it's not that big of a deal. I'll just test anyway. And I've never combed damp yarn or damp wool, so. Come on. Come on out of there. So it's pretty well knotted up, so I'm just gonna loosen this up a bit. We'll have that back in play. And pretty much used it all that way. So now we're gonna go through and pick. Not the best, but yeah, it's working reasonable. Love the color though, turned out great. Got the house door open, let the rain, sounds of the rain in. It's raining really heavy here. knotted up bits. Just kind of got overly knotted up during the dyeing process. So this is going to get combed a couple times. Get the shorter bits out here shortly. There's always waste when you comb, so having some waste is no big deal. And combed waste can be used for carding because that's still plenty long for carding. So we save it. And then we're gonna go back through one more time. Real quick. Lightly damp actually works pretty good, keeps that static down pretty good. But in the process it is starting to dry out a little bit more. And I like coming in from under and pulling. I think this will be our last set, and then I'll diz it out by hand rather than through a diz button hole. I'm not sure if you heard that little knock. That's a flicker woodpecker that we have that's trying to get into the house. And, we have them here every year. And we like the birds, we don't like them damaging the house, which they do. Oops. Okay, there's another little bit of waste. So there's our waste for carding. But since I'm not going to card because this is only a custom sample, that's it. So there we go. So we got our yarn here. So go to the back side and I open it up. It actually makes it much easier to pull. Yeah, so I'm just gonna pull a small bit. This is from raw washed wool, or raw raw washed. It was originally washed in cold water, so there was a little bit of lanolin left in it. In the hot bath, got rid of the rest of the lanolin. This is actually feeling quite lanolin free. I'm sure you saw some little bits and nibs in there, but that's okay because this is just all sample. So I'm just gonna call it there, and one last little bit of waste. And then we got our sample here, so I like to kind of twist it and roll it at the same time. And then we have our little bit here. So here's one of the original color. So you can see the difference. Pretty cool. Next step is spinning it up. Okay, so two different versions. One is dyed after spinning, the other dyed in the raw. So that's what I got in the raw. And looking at it, the thinner one looks a little bit peachier, but not a whole lot. So either way, they would work well, but you can definitely see the different gauge of yarn that I spun. Two different gauges there. This was not too difficult to do. This takes a little bit more delicate work to get small like that, but this would make for easier knitting than this, I think. So anyway, that's what we have, and we'll leave it at that.